Isn't it odd that the late-night TV talk shows are the ones taking the lead in the fight for free speech? I guess someone's got to do it. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, or story from our lives.
Season 18, Chapter 5.
Jimmy Kimmel
lives.
Jimmy Kimmel lives. Late-night TV talk shows. Notice that they're pretty much the same since The Tonight Show premiered in 1954. Male host behind a desk. Guests sit on his right. He wears a suit and tie. There's an announcer, a band, an opening monologue, a pre-planned skit or feature, some guests, often a musical number. Good night, everyone. And anyone who varies on this format, at least in North America, will see limited success. For years, Jimmy Kimmel didn't wear a tie. And even though at the time a man in a suit, dress shirt, and no tie was very fashionable, no tie didn't test well with the audiences. Today, Kimmel wears a tie. But I'll bet that choosing a daily cravat for the show is now the least of his worries. Later iterations of Conan O'Brien had him dressing down, and the set was 2 chairs and a coffee table. Didn't like it. James Corden welcomed guests to a couch on his left.
This is really throwing me. You know...
What are you throwing by?
I'm thrown by this configuration of your desk and this couch.
Well,
your desk can't be on the right. Everybody else is on the right. You gotta go lefty.
Yeah.
Seth Meyers doesn't dress up at all. Frankly, it bothers me. That's ridiculous. But it does. Not to mention the challenges that women have in hosting late-night TV talk shows. Oh, they've done it. But it seems out of the comfort zone of the mass audience for linear TV. Linear TV is what we used to call TV. Television in its infancy took on the same mantra that any show business had before it. That is, when you find something that works, just keep doing it over and over again. That's why late-night talk shows still look pretty much the same. And originally, they were meant to tie a nice bow around a typical broadcast day. And what was that? Well, daytimes were filled with game shows and soap operas, later called daytime dramas. News was at a fixed time. Prime time was your top-notch medical, lawyer, police shows. And some sitcoms. Before you knew it, it was 11 o'clock.
It's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
And then there was late-night talk shows. A little bit of light entertainment before bed. I'm going through this because, the familiar format notwithstanding, the late-night linear TV offerings now seem to be supercharged. Very political. Why? How? Well, this all lands at the feet of one person, and only one person, the one responsible, Donald J. Trump. The J doesn't stand for joke, which he can't take. Everyone else can talk all they want about, turning down the temperature, but it begins and ends with Donald Trump. Well, begins, because there is no end in sight right now. The world's most highly anticipated obituary will be published eventually, but his replacement will be remade in his likeness. And only after that fades away, perhaps, we will be able to return to decency, sanity, and the rule of law. Everything that's wrong with the United States right now, and there's plenty, aside from the Fahrenheit 451 atmosphere, is all the fault of Donald Trump, the convicted sexual deviant, fraudster, racist, homophobic, insensitive, porn star, misogynistic, narcissist, predatory, lying, vindictive, simpleton, serial philanderer, psychopath, gangster, bully that somehow just over half of America saw fit to elect to their highest office. Twice. I'm old enough to remember when any one of these qualities would be enough to disqualify one from seeking elected office. That was then. This is now. America hit the jackpot. Meanwhile, late-night TV talk shows do have a political history. It goes all the way back to Steve Allen, and right up through Parr, Carson, Leno, Letterman, and others. Even just before all of this latest controversy, Jay Leno wondered why those shows got so political, why the hosts with their jokes would alienate at least half of an audience.
Why shoot for just half an audience all the time? Why not try to get the whole... And I love political humor, don't get me wrong, but it's just what happens is people wind up cozying too much to one side or the other.
Well, none of the hosts that I've mentioned so far came on the air at late night after having spent the day with Donald Trump as their president. Everyone made political jokes. Everyone made jokes about politicians, including the president. But none of them plied their trade during a Donald Trump regime. This task was handed over to people like Fallon, Colbert, and Kimmel. Good luck. Carson, Leno, Letterman, they didn't shy away from making fun of the president when he did something ridiculous. But what do you do when you have a daily late-night TV talk show and the President of the United States does something ridiculous every day? It's not the shows and hosts that got more political. It's the nation that got more political. And that was because of Donald Trump, who, again, can't take a joke. I guess it's harder to take a joke when you are one. He's a completely absurd buffoon-like character with cartoon hair and an orange face, who tells Americans not to take Tylenol, but suggested gargling with bleach as a way to combat COVID.
Don't take Tylenol. Don't give Tylenol to the baby.
And everyone in his sphere is a completely absurd and comical character, including your Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Brendan Carr, RFK Jr., Don Jr., Eric, Melania, and, well, sorry, even the lurch-like 6'9" Baron. I don't know what Melania took during pregnancy, but I guess it wasn't Tylenol.
Don't give Tylenol to the baby.
It's all comedy gold. Or perhaps more accurately, you have to laugh. Because if you don't, you'll cry. Listen, I'm sure no president really enjoyed the jokes about them, the impersonations. Although to his credit, Bush 41, H.W., went to great lengths to have Dana Carvey flown in secretly so that he could make an appearance doing his George H.W. Bush impression in front of a Republican gathering, which he did, to great laughter and applause.
The way to do the president is to start out with Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Then you add a little John Wayne. Here we go. Let's go over the ridge. You put them together. You got George Herbert Walker Bush.
And Dana's given me a lot of laughs. He said to me on the phone, "You sure you really want me to come there?" And I said, "Yeah." And the fact that we can laugh at each other is a very fundamental thing.
Now that's a sense of humor. Way to go, H.W. It almost makes me want to forgive all of his other sins. But Donald Trump, no sense of humor at all. Certainly not about himself, which means no sense of self. Ergo, no sense of others. Empathy, zero. Gotta hand it to Ukraine here. To avoid all this, they simply elected a comedian. Why doesn't everyone do that? You have a comedian in the chair in the top job, and then a politician could do a monologue every night at 11:30. Anyway, the blaming of talk show hosts or telling the Trump detractors to turn down the temperature, sorry, that's victim blaming. We're all victims, and it's Trump's fault. Victim blaming. That's like saying, hey, Lincoln, I guess if you didn't want to get shot, you shouldn't have freed the slaves. It's all on Trump. Everything. Everything bad. Nothing good is coming from this. As Jon Stewart said at the Kennedy Center in 2022 when he was receiving the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor, when a society is under threat, comedians are the one who get sent away first. To which he added, comedy doesn't change the world, but it is a bellwether. We are the banana peel in the coal mine. Love, Jon Stewart. And man, I am fatigued. It's hard to believe we're only about 9 months into this second 4-year term. 4 years! Are we going to make it? Honestly, I don't know. People always say, turn off the news. Ignore it. Yeah, maybe. I do take breaks. But ignorance is not bliss. Ignore it? It's like saying, don't look both ways before crossing the street, and you won't get hit by a car. In these last few short months that seem a lot longer, Trump has taken on Canada and Greenland, most of the rest of the now tariffed world, the Gulf of Mexico, his own federal employees, immigrants. He sent the National Guard and U.S. Marines against American citizens. He's threatened the legal system, universities, the media, and those who previously brought any action against him. And now this attack on free speech itself. Dictator for a day, hey, Don?
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one.
Sure, pal. Let me go through a talk show timeline here, just to officially record the history of this. This year, Trump had already successfully sued both ABC and CBS over perceived slights in their coverage of him. Though legal experts thought either case had much merit, they settled anyway for a number of reasons that many people disagreed with. But they settled. On July 17th, CBS announced the cancellation of the entire Late Show franchise, along with Stephen Colbert, effective at the end of his contract of May 2026. Though the network said it was a financial decision made after months of discussions, it coincidentally came right after Colbert called the CBS lawsuit payout a bribe.
It's a big fat bribe.
A bribe to Trump so that he would stay out of the way of a sale of CBS Paramount to a larger media company. People felt, and many accused the administration, of making Colbert's firing a condition for Trump getting out of the way of the deal, which, by the way, does need federal approval. As we know, Colbert is a huge Trump critic. Within hours of Colbert's cancellation, the deal was rushed through, adding to all the suspicions. I covered a lot of this in a podcast recently. If you want to check out episode 217, you can find out more. In August, Trump posted a reaction to the Colbert situation, saying Jimmy Kimmel was next. Colbert took the whole thing with grace and class, went on to win the Emmy for Best Late Night Talk Show on September 15th. Days earlier, September 10th, conservative critic Charlie Kirk was assassinated at a rally on the campus of Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. The outrage was immediate, as it should be. Gunned down for your political beliefs? Jesus, what country is this? Now, I had a big problem with the news coverage of this, and there was a lot of it, and I do watch a lot of news. My issue is with these self-absorbed news anchors who felt it their duty to point out the explosive nature of our times and to tell us that it's time to, what now? That's right, turn down the temperature. Everything is too political. Okay, well, that's not news, but thank you for saying. And then every guest they had on to talk about this was a politician. The Republicans said, yeah, turn down the temperature. Those Democrats have to realize that this has to stop. The Democrats said, yeah, turn down the temperature. Those Republicans have to well, you know how this went. It ended up being gasoline on the fire. Why is everything so political? Let's ask a politician. Are you kidding me? And no one even discussed access to firearms or banning guns. They have given up on that conversation down there. Further, news has this awful habit of assigning a 2 or 3 word description to a person. And then after that, that's who you are, regardless of anything else you might have done or are yet to do. Former child star, disgraced financier, disgruntled employee, wanted criminal, concerned citizen, anonymous source. Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist. I just used that phrase myself. He was not described as a husband, a father of 2, a weekend barbecuer. Like, yeah, we heard those things. But really, when the news came out about Charlie Kirk, he was the conservative activist. Do they realize that just fuels discord? Conservative, well, that just puts him on one side. Activist doesn't really have a positive connotation. So without saying, they actually were saying, yeah, he was shot, but he was a conservative activist. Sorry, Charlie, I guess if you didn't want to get shot, you shouldn't have been a conservative activist. It's the news that helps turn up the temperature more than they'll ever admit. They'll tell you it's time to turn it down, but they're not really interested in turning it down. That doesn't help their ratings. It's not just Fox, CNN, it's all of it. The only reason that CNN and CBC are worse is because they really believe they're not a part of it. They're not a part of the problem, but they are. Timeline. September 15th, Jimmy Kimmel, in his opening monologue remarks, makes a comment about Charlie Kirk's killing. And the fit hits the shan. Only 2 days later, September 17th, ABC Network's parent company, Disney, puts Kimmel and the show on indefinite suspension. This after pressure from the FCC, the U.S. Federal Communication Commission, which regulates licensed broadcasters like ABC. How could Kimmel be so insensitive in his remarks? Well, let's be clear and historically correct. Kimmel did not make a joke about Charlie Kirk's killing. He made a joke about Trump's reaction to it.
The MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction.
Subsequently, though, most of the news just played the first part of that. That's the offending clip. It didn't play any of the rest of it. Oh, turn down the temperature. Word was that no sense of humor Trump was so insulted by that he got one of his toadies, Brendan Carr, the head of the FCC, to put pressure on Disney. Carr actually said, hey, Disney, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Sounding just like a character out of a Scorsese film. We all remember what happened, because it just did. Free speech advocates cried foul. Colbert suddenly had to share his martyrdom with Kimmel. Jon Stewart even came in on his day off. Disney properties were protested and picketed. People canceled Disney Plus and Hulu accounts. Disney's stock took a big hit. Kimmel was reinstated, came back September 23rd with a spot-on monologue addressing all of the issues without apologizing to anyone. I don't think he owed one to anybody, just saying. The only slight concession was that he said he didn't mean to hurt anyone's feelings, and he said he could see how his words might be taken the wrong way. That's not a sorry. That's like saying, I'm offended, please apologize, and you saying, well, I'm sorry you're offended. And his ratings tripled to 6.3 million viewers. YouTube hits of his comeback monologue, 20 million and counting. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, Kimmel will stay on the air. Mind you, his contract is up in May of 2026. ABC, and frankly even NBC, might just follow the lead of CBS and give up on late night altogether. Who needs the hassle? During Kimmel's suspension, ABC aired reruns of Celebrity Family Feud. In the future, that may be just a better option in their minds. I also thought it would be funny that in their attempt to preempt Kimmel, they run this Celebrity Family Feud, and it turns out to be Jimmy Kimmel's family. That would have been funny, but alas, that didn't happen. All of this has really activated the discussion around free speech. In America, it's a First Amendment right. I always thought it was strange that freedom of speech is not actually in their Constitution. Granted, the Constitution is a framework for government and how you run a country. But one might think that freedom of speech would be key to that. It's not. It's an amendment, an afterthought. James Madison wrote most of the First Amendment. All right, Madison, what is it now? Well, I just got this idea for an amendment to our Constitution. Constitution? We just finished that thing. Now you want to change it? Well, no, not really. I just want to add something. So it's an addendum. Well, more like an addendum amendment. I think the term amendment sounds better. All right, what is it? Well, freedom of the press, religion, and freedom of speech. Freedom of speech. Well, that sounds dangerous. Could be trouble. We might need guns. Well, yeah, I'm working on that one too, but that'll be another amendment. Geez, Madison, why'd you have to pick today? I got slaves to buy, I got a batch of rum going, and I got Franklin out there in the lightning flying a kite. I'm swamped. You know what? Go ahead already with the First Amendment. What is freedom of speech, by the way? We have it too in Canada under our Charter of Rights. It's the law. What does it mean? If we're going to cite it, then we have to understand it. It means freedom of expression without fear of censorship, punishment, or retaliation from government entities, which means you also have to have a government that believes in the rule of law and not the rule of Trump. This right extends beyond just verbal communication to include various other forms of expression like art, music, and assembly. However, free speech is not absolute. Laws in many countries, including ours, allow for reasonable restrictions on expression when the limits are demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society, such as restrictions to prevent violence, defamation, or the incitement of hatred. Also, remember the key here. The definition includes the fear of punishment, retaliation, etc. from government entities. We always assume, because broadcasters are government-licensed entities, that they have to allow for free speech. They don't. ABC, CBS, even the radio stations that I do talk shows for, they can allow or disallow almost anything they want. They're private companies. So you see, right there, given all that, free speech is up for interpretation. And like any freedom we enjoy, it's a right and a responsibility. Words matter. Choose them carefully. You know, Kimmel didn't have to say anything about Charlie Kirk at all. He did. Why? I don't know. It bothers me slightly that Kimmel, Colbert, and others are self-anointed pundits. You know, Jon Stewart, John Oliver, even SNL, I think they're a little different because they set themselves up as satirists. Late-night TV, that was just supposed to be entertainment. That nice bow to wrap up the day. It bothers me, but I don't blame them. I blame Trump. I guess we have come to look at our comedians as our philosophers of the day. That banana peel in the coal mine. They show us how to laugh at the absurd. I heard this term recently, settled law. I think we just assumed that many of our rights and freedoms on this continent are settled law. Yeah, we took care of that years ago. Didn't the majority of us agree? We're done. Turns out nothing is settled law, including free speech. Wow, man, I need a Tylenol.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com.
Don't take Tylenol.
Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.